The grand jurors for Sullivan County, Tennessee, being duly impaneled and sworn, upon their oath present and say that Megan Boswell, on or about February 23, 2020, in the state and county aforesaid, and before the finding of this presentment, did unlawfully, knowingly, and feloniously make a statement in response to a legitimate inquiry by Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Assistant Agent in Charge, Chris Wilhoit, a law enforcement officer, concerning a material fact about an offense or incident within the officer's concern, to wit, the disappearance of the defendant's infant daughter, Evelyn Boswell. Knowing that the statement was false, and with the intent to obstruct or hinder the officer from preventing the offense or incident from occurring or continuing to occur. Concerning the defendant's mother, Angela Boswell, allegedly having given the defendant's infant daughter, Evelyn Boswell, to another person who Angela Boswell refused to name, and that her infant child was safe and would have a better life with the unknown person than with the defendant. Contrary to Tennessee Code Annotated, Section 39-16-502, a Class D felony, and against the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee. Signed, Barry P. Stalvis, District Attorney General. Charge of use of a corpse. Count 19. The grand jurors for Sullivan County, Tennessee, being duly impaneled and sworn, upon their oath present and say that Megan Boswell, on or about December 2019, in the state and county aforesaid, and before the finding of this presentment, did unlawfully, knowingly, and feloniously, and without legal privilege, physically mistreat a corpse in a manner offensive to the sensibilities of an ordinary person, contrary to Tennessee Code Annotated, Section 39-17-312, a Class E felony, and against the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee. Signed, Barry P. Stalvis, District Attorney General. Charge, failure to report a death under suspicious, unusual, or unnatural circumstances. Count 20. The grand jurors for Sullivan County, Tennessee, being duly impaneled and sworn, upon their oath present and say that Megan Boswell, on or about December 2019, in the state and county aforesaid, and before the finding of this presentment, did unlawfully, knowingly, and feloniously fail to report the death of her infant daughter, Evelyn Boswell, to the county medical examiner, local police, district attorney general, or sheriff, where the death was from violence, trauma, or in any suspicious, unusual, or unnatural manner, contrary to Tennessee Code Annotated, Section 38-7-108, a Class E felony, and against the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee. Signed, Barry P. Stalvis, District Attorney General. True bill was returned 22nd day of May 2024, and it's signed Sally Sierra, foreman of the grand jury.
Mr. Scott, how does Ms. Boswell plead to each count?
Defendant pleads not guilty to every count.
General, we have open statements.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Today we're going to talk about Evelyn Boswell for a few minutes. In 2019, Evelyn Boswell was a bright, growing little girl, full of life, healthy, learning to walk, learning to talk, doing all the things that a 12-month-old child would do. Which means today, 5 years later, Evelyn Boswell would be 6 years old. She would be possibly in kindergarten, learning to read, maybe taking her first ballet class or her first soccer game, learning to tie her shoes, all of the things that we think of that are firsts for 6-year-old children. But based upon the last 2 days of our jury selection, we all know that Evelyn Boswell is not going to do any of those things. We all know that all of that was taken away from her in December 2019 by the defendant Megan Boswell. And her life wasn't just cut short. It's not just a tragedy. Her life was violently ripped away from her. And we can all agree that it's a shock, it's a tragedy when a child dies. It's upsetting. It upsets all of us. You'll hear phrases like gone too soon, what a tragedy. A child has such a life ahead of them. And a lot of times it is a tragedy. And in this case, it's a tragedy too. But in this case, it was a preventable tragedy. There's so much more to this story that you are going to hear. Because Evelyn did not have to die. Evelyn could be here today. And so today, 5 years later, we are asking you to give justice to Evelyn Boswell. During this trial, you will learn that the one person, Evelyn's mother, Megan Boswell, who was entrusted more than anyone else to take care of her, to keep her safe, to protect her, that she failed her in the worst possible way. You will hear proof that the last time Evelyn Boswell was seen alive was December 6th, 2019. You're going to hear that date a few times during this trial. That is the last time that Evelyn Boswell was seen alive. And that was just a few weeks after her first birthday. And you're going to hear from many witnesses who saw Evelyn frequently, saw her all the time, family members, Megan Boswell's friends, that all of a sudden are like, where's Evelyn? Where's Evelyn? We're not seeing. They're concerned. And they would ask Megan Boswell about it. And every time, Megan had an answer. Megan concocted a story. And I'm not going to tell you now what she said. You're going to hear that in the proof. But she told all kinds of different stories, depending on the person that she was talking to. And you will hear from those witnesses today. But you will hear, or this week, but you will hear there was concern. But, they knew Megan. They thought they knew Megan, I should say. And so they wanted to trust that what she was telling them was the truth. But it wasn't. It was not the truth. So after December, what happens next? We have Christmas, New Year's. Where's Evelyn? There is no Evelyn. You will not see any proof that Evelyn was seen at Christmas, New Year's. Then we jump to January. The entire month of January 2020, 31 days. Where's Evelyn? There's no Evelyn. People are really starting to get concerned, and Megan Boswell continues to concoct stories of where Evelyn is to try to help people make sense so she can keep this going. The entire month of February 2020. Where's Evelyn? Again, at this point, family is really starting to get concerned that they have not seen Evelyn. And they're asking questions. Months pass. We're not talking about weeks. We are talking about over 2.5 months that Evelyn Boswell is missing. The defendant is not even just canceling her well visits. She's no-showing. She's just not showing up because she knows where Evelyn is. But again, even to the pediatrician's office, she has to concoct a story about forgetting the appointment maybe, or I got my days mixed up. Always a story. Always a story. So we know now, we did not know then, but we know now that from early December, Evelyn Boswell, even though it had not been reported by Megan Boswell, Evelyn Boswell was a missing child from early December until almost the end of February. She was a missing child. And the only person who knew that, the person who was entrusted to take care of her the most, is the only person who knew that Evelyn was actually missing. And she just left it unreported. Over 2 months later, finally, Megan Boswell's dad, Tommy Boswell, finally essentially puts an ultimatum down on his daughter and says, I'm tired of the stories. If you don't show me my grandchild by the next day, I'm essentially calling the police. Well, Megan knew she could not do that, and she did not do that. And Tommy Boswell finally was the one to report Evelyn missing on February 18th of 2020. Finally, law enforcement gets involved, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation gets involved, the FBI gets involved, all hands on deck to find this missing child. She's finally reported missing. But it's important to note that it was not Megan Boswell that reported her child missing. Megan Boswell never reported her child missing. So you're going to hear from December of 2019 until February of 2020, when it's finally reported, that the defendant's biggest believable story, that really is probably what kept the family from reporting earlier, is she was saying that Evelyn was with her father, Ethan Perry. And you'll hear a lot about Ethan Perry, and you'll get to hear from Ethan Perry yourselves. Ethan Perry is actually not Evelyn's father, but Megan led him to believe that he was the father. And everyone, for all purposes, also believed Ethan Perry was the father. So to the family, they're like, well, that's good. He's stepping up. The father's stepping up. That's good. We're proud of him. And that is the story that Megan Boswell told mostly to her family, to her friends. You were going to hear a lot of testimony about her just telling everyone that Ethan Perry has gotten Evelyn. First, you'll hear that they're trading weeks, but doesn't make sense because people are still not seeing Evelyn. So then Megan took it one step further, where he took her to court and got emergency custody, blaming her for something. And again, not true. There was never court. There were no documents. Juvenile court was never involved. It was just another story that Megan Boswell was telling because she knew where Evelyn was, and she had to keep perpetuating this lie. Interestingly enough, she didn't think it through completely because Ethan Perry at the time was in the Army in Louisiana. He lived in barracks, and I think we all understand and know that in the barracks there's not going to be a toddler running around. But Megan Boswell, in perpetuating that story, she didn't care. She got the entire Army involved in this to go investigate this poor guy who was trying to serve our country in Louisiana. Pulling him out of his duty, I can't imagine the chaos that caused, all because Megan Boswell wanted to perpetuate this lie. And Ethan Perry didn't even see Evelyn in December. You will hear that he came in to visit his